So now that we've tested and fixed links and we've found everything that we needed and replaced what we didn't want as far as text or links or added links, then now we can actually publish our site. So I'm going to go to my Files panel and I'm going to Manage Sites and I'll edit. So here I am in my simplified site setup in Dreamweaver CS5, and I'm going to go to my server tab over here and I'm going to click the plus button. So this is going to be a FTP connection, and we have our server name, and we're just going to call that Snapshots. Now we need to put in our FTP address. Now in this lesson I'm using my own personal server and I have it hosted. You're going to need to have your own FTP server or host with your own access information. If you don't have a server, just sit back and watch what I do. And that's going to be snapshots.aboxofpixels.com. And that is a subdomain of aboxofpixels.com. Now we need to put our username in here. Now you're not going to be able to see the password at this point. Now I take a look at my web URL, making sure that that looks correct. And now I'm going to click Test. And I have connected successfully to my server. So I can say OK. And now save. But let's make sure that we're looking at our more options here. So I'm going to move this up so I can actually see it. So I don't need to use any passive FTP or any alternative FTP. And I don't really need anything necessarily in my Advanced tab, except for, again, let's talk about our remote server. So do I want to maintain synchronization information between my local and my remote server? Do I want to automatically upload files to my server and save? Probably not. And this is just really a personal preference. I personally like to do that manually so that I'm putting the files that I know that I want up on the server. And do we want to enable check-in and check-out? So if I select this, then it's going to automatically check out those files when I open something. And when I check out, I'm going to put my checkout name and my email address. And again, this works great if I'm working with a team in multiple locations so that I know when somebody else has a file open and I can only read it. I can't actually write on top of somebody else's information. I could put my testing server in here as well if I needed to. We don't at the moment. So I'm going to uncheck this because we don't need to enable check-in and check-out. And I will click Save. Now I can click Save here. And it's going to recreate that cache for me again. And done. So now I can actually see this in a different view. So if I bring this open, and it's really large, so I will make it a little bit smaller so we can see a little better. So I have a button right here that lets me connect to that remote host. And if I select it now, we'll see that we just have a path there for our site to go into. If I need to refresh the remote server or my files, I can refresh here. This lets me view an FTP log. Well, we haven't put anything up there, so there is no real log as of yet. Making sure that indeed I see my remote server information on the left-hand side. We don't have a testing server, so that button doesn't really do anything for us. And if we'd set up an SVN and had a repository for our versions, we would be able to access that. And here is my get files, and we can put files. I can also just drag them across from my local view over into my remote view. So to do just that, I would just select everything, and then we just drag that over into that folder. It's telling me at the bottom of that window that I have 10 local items selected, and it's going to then ask me whether I want to put those dependent files. Well, we're grabbing everything, so everything goes over at the same time, so we can just basically say no. Otherwise, though, that can be very helpful, making sure that you do add your dependent files. For instance, if you have made some maybe changes to, let's say, your CSS as just kind of a temporary, oh, I'm just trying this out, you wouldn't necessarily want to have that go as a dependent file and overwrite your good CSS. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention and just don't arbitrarily move everything over and then be sorry that you had moved it over, which is why we have Subversion. So once this puts everything up on my remote server, I can put the URL into my browser and go check it out. And we find our URL. And here is our website. Now that we have our FTP up, we can finally do our site report. So now that we have our FTP information up, we can do our site report now. Let's fold this back up. There we go. Now if I go underneath my site menu and choose reports, I have some options of what I can do a report on. Just a current document, the entire current local site, selected files in a site, or a particular folder. On workflow, I can do checked in, checked out by, my design notes, and recently modified. And workflow reports really help improve collaboration amongst a web team. So you can run those workflow reports that display who checked out a file, what files have design notes, etc. And then that helps that workflow between those team members. In my HTML, I can find all of my missing alt text, any redundant nested tags, any untitled documents, all stuff that will ultimately make my website maybe not as usable for my end user, maybe removable empty tags. And let's go ahead and select our recently modified for that as well. Then I have some report settings. So files created and modified in the last 7 days, modified or created between certain times, local machine, testing, etc. So I'll just say OK to that, and now I will run my report. And what I get, and we'll pull this over into this window here, is my modified report. And that's all there is to working with my reports. And let's go back to Dreamweaver. And so I've got this little button over here where I can actually save that report, and I've got more information about that report as well. So now we've worked with our entire site, we have made all of our pages, we've done our FTP, and congratulations, you actually have a website. Thanks for joining me in exploring Adobe Dreamweaver CS5 Essentials. I hope that you've enjoyed working with Dreamweaver and feel inspired to dig in and create your own website. You can find out more about me personally and what I'm doing with Dreamweaver at aboxofpixels.com. On behalf of Total Training, thank you for watching. You've just finished your first site. Congratulations!
But have you made sure all of your links work and check browser compatibility? In this last chapter, we will discuss how best to upload, collect site feedback, use Subversion, and test your site so you know things will work correctly.
In this chapter, we're going to talk about testing and publishing a website. So some of the things that we would want to make sure of at this point before we published is we'd want to find and replace anything at the last minute that isn't correct in our site. We'd want to collect any site feedback and take a look at site reports, and we want to do some testing and fixing any links that are not correct, that are orphaned perhaps, and then we can publish our site. So let's first take a look at find and replace, but we need to redefine our site root. So I'm going to go to my Files panel and choose Manage Sites. I'm going to choose Edit for my chapter, and this is going to be 12. And now I need to go to my project files and define for chapter 12. And I will then save. Okay, so let's just open up a page, and we can close anything out that we had opened before. In the last chapter, we took a look at adding some things by template. But let's say we didn't have an actual template, which we don't at the moment, and we wanted to add another link to another page. So I'm going to take a look at my code, and maybe I would like to add a new page inside of here. But what about the rest of my pages? So for instance, if I want to add another link right here, I can put my cursor right here. I can hit my return key. Let's make it easy, and I will copy that and paste it there and just change a couple things. So let's say we're going to add a page called Locations. So now I can use my find and replace. So I'm going to just grab it from UL to UL, make it easy to find and replace. And I will copy that. I'll go to my edit, find and replace, and we'll clear that out. We'll make sure that that looks how we're expecting it up there, and I'm going to paste that into my replace. Now I don't need that up here because I need to find it without that in it. So I can either match case or not. I can ignore my white space. I can use my regular expression, and I can find this in just my selected text, current document, open documents folder, and what we need is the entire current local site. And yes, this is in my source code. It's not just in my text or a specific tag. So I'm going to ignore my white space just in case it's different somewhere else. I really just want to take a look at the code itself. So I could find next, I could find all, or I can just replace or replace all. And since I want this site-wide, I'm just going to choose replace all. It's going to ask me whether I want to do that or not. And I'm going to say yes. So I would want to save the document that I'm in at the moment. And if I take a look at my contact now, I see that now that is a part of that particular document. So if I go to my design, now I see locations next to my contact and my join that wasn't there before. So doing a search and replace is very, very easy inside of Dreamweaver. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about making sure that we're testing our site. So we want to make sure that our pages function in the browsers that we're targeting, and we want to preview our pages in different browsers and platforms so that we can make sure that everything looks exactly the way we're expecting it to. We can also check the site for broken links, and we can also fix them pretty easily inside of Dreamweaver. We're going to monitor the file size of my pages in the time that it takes to download. I want to make sure that I don't have anything that's so large that anybody with a slower connection, they're going to have to wait for that page to load. And we want to run some site reports to test and troubleshoot our entire site. So let's take a look at some of the things that we can do. So under my site menu, I can run a report, but I have to make sure that my FTP information is first. So we're going to run our site reports after we actually put our FTP information in, so we're able to do that then. I can check my links site-wide, and I can change links site-wide. So I'll take a look at that one first. So when I'm changing my links site-wide, maybe I have made a page or added maybe an S on the end of something outside of Dreamweaver, because Dreamweaver can help you update those pages if you do it inside of Dreamweaver. But if something is done outside of Dreamweaver, then I can, change all links from one thing into links of something else. And I can browse for those files also, so I don't necessarily have to remember exactly how to spell that particular link. When I come back up here and take a look at checking my links site-wide, I notice that I have some broken links. So I happen to have a locations page that we had put some kind of fake information in at one point, having it go to the different pages, so those end up being broken because there isn't anything really in there. There's nowhere for those pages to go. So it tells me that I have 13 orphan, that I have 200 all links together, only 179 are okay, and I have 7 external links. So right up here, I can then take a look at what external links that I have. And I see that I've got some going to some older chapters that we've looked at, and so I would want to go back in there and fix that. And then I have some orphan files. Now this is great for when I have pictures that I'm not really using anymore, and I can go back in there and get rid of those instead of having a folder that's just full of images that I'm not using any longer. So let's see what else we have in here. So we've taken a look at the search already, and we also have our reference, of course, our O'Reilly book reference. And then I have a validation that I could run, and I could go look at my settings for my validation, and that would be my either 4.0, 5.0, HTML, XHTML, 1.0, transitional, etc. And then I've got some browser compatibility. So this is actually fairly important that we run this browser compatibility. So if I take a look at my settings, see what I'm targeting against. So I don't know of anybody at this point who's running the old Mac Explorer, Netscape either. So I'll take Internet Explorer, Firefox, Opera, and Safari. And then this is going to run against that particular page. Now I do know that I have a page that does have a problem with IE6. So I'm going to open up my PhotoWalks page, and I'll check that, and I've got a duplicate indent bug, which tells me that I have a problem on line 58 of my CSS, and it tells me what that problem is, and I could go to Adobe's website and take a look at possible solutions for that particular bug. So we've already taken a look at our line checker, and then we have our site reports, which we cannot run until after we have our FTP information in, and we'll do that next.